Hello, everyone. I'm Cynthia, founder of the Brave Zone. And in this presentation, I want to cover a little bit of business acumen to help business leaders make better decisions that affect the bottom line positively. Now, many of us become business leaders because we're an expert in one or two fields, and we have possibly led or supervised a smaller or larger team, typically specialized in one aspect of the business. Now, as we graduate and groom ourselves, develop into senior leadership or a more general manager in a business, we need to understand more than one aspect of the business. We need to sometimes have a helicopter view that allows us to understand how business works and what are some of the decisions that improve or harm the bottom line. Because ultimately, the purpose of our role, whatever it is to help facilitate the growth of the business. And yes, purpose is important and people is also important, but ultimately we are trying to create a more profitable business so that we have more money and cash to take care of the team and to take care of the clients and the stakeholders around us. Now, as we have experienced the pandemic, many businesses have been struggling throughout this time. But the good news is we are reopening in many countries and cities around the world. Many businesses have reinvented themselves and developed a way to reopen. My challenge to you is let's reopen profitably. Let's really understand and learn from this crisis and understand what are the decisions that we can make so that we can have a better profit moving forward. So let's start. A little bit about myself. I have 25 years as a business leader and achiever in various types of businesses, starting from multinational organizations, where I help the organization to improve the bottom line through usually sales and marketing efforts. In the process, I have also groomed myself to understand more about business, including business finance, strategy, etc. And I've been privileged to have been taught by many mentors who have really helped me understand business acumen, not only to understand it theoretically, but really to do the activities and the strategies practically so that we really saw results. So that's my background in business. Now, I've also developed a business coaching business coaching business, and in that, that has given me enriched my understanding of different types of industries. So if you are in a service business or a products business, I know certain things are the same, but many things are different. So feel free to also ask me questions about the differences because I have been working in both and leading teams in both. The important thing for me as a business person and to when I facilitate business workshops is to understand that in in being successful in business, it's a combination between your psychology and your business acumen. It is not just about having a great mindset and having a great purpose as a leader. If you don't understand what affects business, bottom line, what strategies and decisions you're making that's actually intentionally or unintentionally harming the bottom line, you can find yourself lost. Okay. You can be making so much effort, making so much progress, you think, but actually, when the monthly financial statements come along, why isn't your progress being appreciated? So let's understand both. Right. So when we define marketing, I take Philip Kotler's definition of marketing, which is meeting your client's need at a profit. People think these days marketing is just about social media or having all these branding strategies out there. This is important, but ultimately marketing is is way before all these ads and promotions take place. Marketing in itself is a client fulfillment strategy, but it also has a lot of business savvy behind it. The only reason why you want to market is something is if that something brings more profit to a business. It because the business would need that profit and convert it to cash to fuel the growth of the business, to expand, to create more jobs, and to make a bigger impact in the community. So it is good to meet clients' needs, but we also need to balance that to meet the organizational needs, which is profit and ultimately cash. So marketing starts well before promotions and advertisements. It starts by understanding, first of all, who are you? and creating a clear purpose, a clear direction in your business, and a clear statement to the market of this is who we are and this is who we're not. Secondly, it's understanding the value proposition that you're ready to offer your clients and understanding your clients' needs. A financial mentor that I had that I learned from was, he said, marketing is very simple. Find out what they want and give it to them. Find out what your clients want and just give it to them. It's really that simple. But many of us are so excited about what we want to give, and then we later realize that we don't really understand what a client's needs. So that's why our stuff doesn't sell. And finally, of course, marketing is about how you can fulfill the client's needs, but also making sure you do that profitably. And we'll talk about real strategies soon. When I think of a business, I try to help you understand business by giving you the analogy of a fruit tree. Business is like a fruit tree. The financial results that we want to enjoy is like the fruit of the tree. But you can't get fruit unless you have a healthy branch. And in business, that means you need happy clients, because happy clients are the ones that buy your products, that give you revenue, that give you the financial results. You need that. So there's no fruit without a branch. There's no financial results without happy clients. But for happy clients need a good delivery system. You can't get happy clients if you can't fulfill what you promise. So that's your operation system. So in order to get happy clients, you need to make sure that your internal operation system is good and smooth. Now, system is executed by people. So in order to have a smooth delivery, you need engaged people. Okay, so this is, or what we call the root of the tree, the bark of the tree. You can't get fruit without a healthy branch. You can't get a healthy branch without a healthy bark. You can't get a healthy bark if you don't have healthy roots. And the root of all business is people. So let's put in a little bit more business speak on this. Financial results come because you have financial savvy. If you're a business leader and you're not financially savvy, meaning you don't understand what creates numbers, your numbers in a financial statement is a story. It's like once upon a time, something happened and that's the result. That's the number you see. So if you're going to create good financial results, good fruit, you need financial savvy. If you're going to create happy clients, healthy branches, you need effective marketing. And again, marketing isn't just promotion and ads. It's all around the whole customer journey and experience. It's about customer service. It's about how you promise on your how you deliver on your promises. That's all the marketing. It's about attracting the right customers, not just trying to serve everyone and then disappointing 50% of the population. Okay, so that's effective marketing. Now, in order to get smooth delivery, which is a healthy bark, you need all good operating systems, whether it's not always about adding more technology, but it's about making things effective and efficient. And in order to create engaged people, which is the healthy root that you need in your tree, you need great leadership. And I would also add good management. Leadership is great, but you also need to execute your action plan. So I want to help you understand this by kind of taking you through what I call the profit story. As I said before, your financial statement is actually quite interesting. It's like a storybook. It's like a fairy tale. Everyone loves a story. Not everybody likes to read financial statements, but if you start seeing your financial statement as a beautiful story, or sometimes not so beautiful, as a story of your business, it might get a little bit more interesting. It's like once upon a time, there's this bunch of revenue. Then an evil monster called cost of goods, the cost of making your products and services, come and eat up some of that revenue. And you have what is left, which is gross margin. And then another evil monster called fixed cost come and eat it up. And then somehow the hero comes in, saves a little bit of the day, and that's called profit. The end. Okay, so that's the once upon a time story. Okay, so hopefully when we see your numbers in it, you'll see the gist of it. Once upon a time, you have this revenue, a whole bunch of invoices that your customers have agreed to because they agreed to buy your products. or services. But before we enjoy that lot of money, you have to understand that in order to make those products and services, there's these costs called cost of goods. And depending on how you manage your strategies and select your strategies, these costs of goods could be giants or it could be small elves, So these enemies of yours can be huge if you don't manage your cost of goods, or they could be little tiny enemies that you can just easily kill off, right? Then fixed cost is another monster. And depending how good you are in managing your operations and your business, these could be giant enemies, or it could be little elves that you can easily kick around, right? So ultimately, if you are a good manager of your cost of goods and your fixed costs, and you are executing the right strategies in terms of your revenue, gross margins, and all these kinds of things, your profit story can be quite big. But if you're not, then your profit could be quite small despite all your big efforts. So let's take a look at this line by line. What business strategies and decisions impact every major line in your financial statements? Now, I can go do this workshop for 2 days, 3 days, 5 days. I can also do it for you in a couple of minutes. So I'm going to choose, because this is sample work, I'm going to choose the couple of minutes version, okay, as not to bore you as well. But we can go through all the details as much as you'd like when we actually work together. Or if you want to keep this topic quite general for your team, we can also do that. Revenue, let's talk about that first. Top line, everybody kind of knows where that comes from, right? What are some of the strategies people do or they forget to do that makes revenue predictable and strong and big versus revenue that is small, unpredictable, and just like a roller coaster? See, a good business leader and manager knows how to set clear and motivating targets. That's one of the first things I always do when I am in charge. I'm put in charge of a team, and all these strategies, by the way, that I'm going to share with you. Some of them, yes, I learned from people, but many of them are actual strategies that I've also implemented myself and have been shown to prove to achieve results. So if you have any specific details, don't worry. I'm not a very theoretical person. What I teach is very practical, and feel free to ask me any questions and on a practical level. Setting clear, motivating targets, not just motivating, but clear. Revenue that is, just, a target that is a year target is going to be less clear than a daily target or a weekly target. Now, depending on your industry, some of you take more time to create revenue. Some of your selling cycles are weeks and months and maybe years, but some of you are a daily selling cycle where it's a more retail, quick decision business. So everybody will have a different definition of what is clear and what is motivating. Motivating is also important because you don't want to set targets that are way too hard because people are just like, oh, forget that, right? But you also don't want to set a target that is too low. So finding that balance is really important. Update your client knowledge. Make sure you are providing what they need, not just what you want to sell, but what clients need. Sell what the clients want to buy now. Okay, again, it's nice to future sell, but also consider, what does the client want to buy, ready to buy now? That's what's going to be in your invoice books this month or next month, okay? Or if not, you're trying to get revenue in a long term and it might be a little bit too hard. The right person in the right role. Make sure, if you want higher revenue, that your sales team, your business development team, your team in general has got to be well recruited, well selected. The right incentives. Salespeople like to see money coming in quickly. If your incentive system is too far out, many organizations that I've helped, their incentive systems are not motivating enough for hungry salespeople. It's too conservative. It's not exciting. It's not fun. It doesn't motivate. It doesn't motivate your team to sell. Okay. Motivate your team to sell and motivate people in all departments to become a salesperson. That's one of my favorite things to do when I enter an organization. The finance executive, the I don't know, office admin, they all have, I try to inject the energy, how fun selling is, and everybody's got their part. Everybody touches the customer in some way, shape, or form. So why can't they also help promote? Why can't they have the hunger? And let's think of creative ways to help your team do that. I find that strategy works so well. I remember my finance executive started selling merchandise for us. He cannot sell big contracts, but he's so willing to become a sales orientated person. He'll never be in a sales team, but he wants to be more sales orientated, that he wants to learn. And he became a really good merchandise salesperson, actually. And he had fun doing it. Managing your action plan execution. We can talk more about this, but it's so important not just to have a plan, but to execute it. Making decisions based on data management system, having a CRM to understand your customers, where they've been, the pipeline, who's stuck, who needs a little bit of a push, who needs to be escalated to a different kind of level of salesperson. Making it easy to buy and buy again. Some of your websites or your sales process are so complicated, it makes people a bit like put off to buy. So make it easy. Instead of focusing on lots of strategies, fewer, bigger, better strategies are often the way. I can share with you lots of stories, but I'm also mindful of the fact that I promised this to be a short presentation and sample. But as you can see, when we have more time, we can discuss these strategies in more detail. Let's talk about cost of goods and also therefore gross margins, that first monster. If you want to minimize your cost of goods monster, then make sure you're selling fast moving and high profit items. You see, it takes the same amount of time and effort to sell expensive, high profit things versus cheap, low profit things. It takes the same sweat, So if your strategy is I'm cheap and I'm low profit, then you better have a very good business plan, because that's going to be a very tiring business. So make sure what you do is selling fast moving and high profit items, cutting out waste. Now, I have no problem spending cost in business, but I do have a problem spending waste. I differentiate that. When you run a business, there's cost. Salary is cost, rent is cost, electricity is cost, making products is cost. But waste is things like products that's not made well and carefully, and then there's lots of extra material wasted and cannot be used. A batch of material could make 100 widgets, and then now it can only make 90 because you've designed the production process in a way that doesn't is not efficient. The cost of sales in a service business, like more like intangible services. Let's say a salesperson that wastes time. They could be doing the service for, let's say, an hour, but they take an hour and a half because they're not organized. A sales process that take longer because somebody is not planning ahead of time, or the cost of delivering a service that is more expensive because it's not been well thought out. I mean, again, depending on the industry. So both service and product business, you can learn a lot about cutting waste. What are the biggest waste, most obvious waste in your organization? I bet you if we sit down and talk about it, you can think of at least 3. Cut that out. Reevaluating suppliers. If you're evaluating, what are things that we must have in our organizations? What's a nice to have? Now, the pandemic's taught us to minimize what we need, right? So I really want to differentiate. Sometimes when we're reopening and we're trying to recover business, yeah, we do need to bootstrap a little bit. I remember I've always been put into turnaround businesses that had no profits for years. So you can imagine we did not have a spending budget. Everything needs to be really tight and frugal. But what it taught us was we did learn what was a must have and what was a nice to have. Product mix and customer mix management. When I was turning around businesses, one of the key things is to understand what products is worth selling. What products are just a distraction? Again, when you have 70 types of products or services to sell, salespeople need to focus on being trained by the understanding of, but if half of that is not profitable, if half of that is virtually obsolete, why waste their time? So as a marketing person, you are the strategist. If you're a business leader, you're the strategist. Is that product worth selling anymore? And that's what we call products mix management. One of the projects I did, I obsoleted 75 chemical products when I was in the chemical company, just so we can boost up the profits. We stopped people selling those things. Yeah, there were complaints, people are going to complain about everything, but ultimately we improved the profits. And over time, people didn't really miss what they used to sell. They got something better. They got something that helped them grow their business as well. Customers also found the new products better and easier to use. So, you have to deal with certain things. Customer mix management is also interesting. When I was leading a service company, one of my jobs was to fire customers. Why? Because we used to say, we'll help everyone. We had 800 customers, but many of them didn't pay on time, didn't pay at all. Many of them required over servicing to a level that was ridiculous. Many of them were not even, if we were honest to ourselves, our ideal customers. So part of profitability and making better business decisions is to decide, what kind of customers do we really want? If we're going to give our heart and soul servicing, doing good for these people, they better reciprocate by being that ideal customer, okay? And after we took away, or we fired kindly these about 200 customers, our business improved. And there's some tricks to do that politely. So we can talk about more of that. Streamlining processes, whether in a production business or in a service business, streamlining your bureaucracy will help you improve your gross margin as well. Sometimes, especially if your goods and services require some kind of production process. Reviewing your discount policy, reviewing who can give discount, how much, in what situation do we want to give discounts, what do we expect back when we give discounts. That's also an interesting discussion to have within your team. Increasing the price of side items, which is not your main items, but it's less visible, but people will not stop buying from you because of your side items are increased, but you also get a little bit boost on your margins. Reducing delivery costs, or finding different ways to deliver in a more efficient way. Increasing buying per delivery, increasing volume. How can we deliver, cheaper by having them buy more per delivery? Reducing the cost of sales. Again, if we had more time, we'll discuss this in more details, but I want to make sure that we get through this. Let's talk about that big other monster, the second monster, the fixed costs. What are some of the ways that you can minimize that monster from it being a giant in your business to becoming a little elf that you just kick around? First, evaluate team performance, because especially for the service business, most of your fixed costs will be salaries. But even in a production business, a huge chunk of your fixed cost is actually salaries, especially if you've got a big team or labor is expensive in your area. So making sure, again, there are the salary is a cost, that's fine, but non-performing team members are not costs, they're waste. And what happens is they demotivate the performers, because if they can get away with underperformance, why do I have to work so hard to perform? Right? That's a mindset sometimes. So it's important for you to evaluate, give feedback, groom, but also make that hard decision whether or not this person deserves to remain in your team. Cutting out waste, we talked about that before. Must have versus nice to have. Again, we talked about that. And again, having the right person, right role, right time will just get you results faster. It's not just about cutting people out. Nobody likes firing people. So upon hiring, make sure your recruitment criteria is correct. Many performance problems start with an unclear recruitment criteria. Okay, so when you have to fire people a lot, that means, start with recruitment. Why? Let's start with the beginning of the problem. Okay, make sure you get that right. Make sure as much as you can, you have performance-based incentives, not just fixed salaries. Reducing idle space in your warehouse or in your office. I remember back in the days, this is going back a while, the offices used to be very big, even in service offices, service businesses, because they had meeting rooms, they had everything. And then there's this movement in a bank, I think I remember in a British bank, that they reduce almost 50% of their working space, because they cut out meeting rooms. They just use co-working spaces. They just rent from outside meeting rooms. They cut out permanent desks. They had hot desks. They put things, private items in the locker instead of having it everywhere. And it actually reduced rental cost, which is a fixed cost in your business. But people had more fun really at work because they were actually more engaged with other team members. Budgeting for your expenses is also very important. You may not always be able to plan how much revenue that comes into your business, but you can definitely plan how much expenses, and then doing a backward calculation, whether it's a break-even point or profit break-even point, for you to understand how much revenue do you need in order to get the profit that you want. Having clear expense policies. Gosh, that's so important, especially for traditional businesses. You know, it might have been easy to manage when you just had a handful of people and everybody was a family member. But as you grow, you do need more solid and clear policies. Equipment maintenance programs, especially if you are dealing with some kind of equipment or vehicles, you know, replacing equipment is often more expensive than maintaining them properly. So I learned that the hard way when I was doing a service business. Much of our services were done with equipment. So yeah, buying a new equipment instead of wasting money on repeated repairs. Alternatively, sometimes you are over maintaining it. I mean, it's really time to go pack it up, sell it on eBay, and just buy a new one because it's just costing too much money. Assigning an owner for every expense line is one of my favorite strategies for handling costs, because when you look at a financial statement, there are many lines. There are many things that impact the bottom line. The question is, who's responsible for each of them? Now, typically, one big category like fixed costs, you can't just have one person be in charge of it, because there are a lot of people make decisions that impact all the little numbers inside it. So you've got to have a team effort about this. You know, who's in charge of? I remember we used to have a general affairs person. He was in charge of purchasing and dealing with suppliers. He's in charge of every line that has anything to do with suppliers. He has to make sure that line meets budget, that line is as efficient as possible. Even when he hires an office cleaner, for instance, he has to make sure that we get the results without the costs, you know, without the overinflating the cost. Everybody owns, everybody that makes decisions or uses anything in the office or in the business impacts the fixed costs. You know, if you use an office equipment carelessly, you might incur costs of repair to the company. So you are indirectly an owner to that particular expense line. And having people understand that, having everybody understand that, really helps to bring awareness to the fixed costs. So that's one of my favorites. Again, I can talk to you about how we implemented that in the companies I've led, and how you can do that in yours as well. Let's talk about profit. Profit-based budgeting is very different than revenue-based budgeting. Profit-based budgeting, basically you plan for profit instead of having profit as a leftover of whatever you have left after revenue is being cut by cost. Okay, you plan for profit. You want to have X amount of profit, and therefore the revenue needs to be like this. Or if we can only get a certain amount of revenue, then the cost needs to be minimized because we want to protect our profit. That kind of budgeting is a very different mindset, rather than let's plan for revenue and then profit is whatever's left over. Okay. The second strategy is explain why profit, not just purpose, is important. Purpose, obviously, to me, having a clear purpose and good and positive impact in business these days is a standard. It's a no-brainer, of course. But what's missing sometimes behind all this purpose talk is the importance of profit, because guess what? Money isn't the only thing in life, but we do need money. And we do need money when we want to create more jobs and help more the community with more impact. So our people need to understand, you need to understand as a business leader, not just purpose, but the ability, the savvy that you need to create a good, profitable business is also important. If not, a lot of lives are at stake, the lives of your employees. Okay, creating a care culture where people actually care about how they treat things around the office, how they treat customers, how they work, creating a deep sense of care. And that to me starts with helping people understand that they never work for a company. People always work for themselves, their personal development, and their families. Connecting them with their inner purpose of work, not just having them act like tools that achieve your targets, is so important, because once they connect with and they engage with their own personal purpose, they will emerge with a greater sense of care for your company, your clients, and what you're trying to do. Being transparent with your financial statements is also a biggie for me. I always lay it all out. I mean, if you're making not so much profit anyway, I mean, what is there to show? Even if you are making big profits, people deserve to celebrate that we are winning as a company. And hopefully, if you have a bigger vision for your business, your profits are going to be reinvested to create a bigger impact and a bigger company anyway. So everybody should be celebrating. There's no secrets, um, show them how they grow when the company grows. Of course, you want them to grow when the company grows. They'll get excited to see more profits in the bottom line, because they'll look forward to growing with the company. Show how every department can be a profit center, not just a cost center. Our finance department or admin department, if they do their job well, show how what they do actually impact positively on profit. Make your idle cash grow. Don't just work hard. Also work smart. Your extra cash, how do we split it into different accounts where certain accounts that's unused can grow, having money make more money. Having a profit account for the owners to make sure that they get paid dividends regularly. Getting agreement to have higher sales targets at the beginning of the year, especially what the pandemic has taught us, is that the rest of the year can be quite unpredictable. Suddenly there might be another lockdown, suddenly another variant. Get an agreement that what if we start January off, or whatever your first quarter is in your financial year, what if we start our financial year with more aggressive targets, just in case something happens mid-year or end of the quarter or end of the year, we'll be protected because we've already worked hard. It's kind of like preparing for the winter. Let's stock up in the summer, and just in case there's a bad winter come, we still have warehouses full of wheat and grain for us to eat during the winter. Okay, always prepare for plan B. Used to be okay before the pandemic. After the pandemic, I'm just going to say, do a plan C as well, just in case, okay? Because you never know, okay? So that's always quite good for profit protection. There are many ways that we can shape this presentation. We can go more detailed, we can go general, we can have activities. This can be just a straight up teaching type of format. Get in touch with me and let's discuss what are your needs. First, I want to understand, why is it important for you to teach business acumen to your managers? I want to understand, what's the bigger helicopter view? What are you trying to achieve, so that we can shape this in a way that will work for you. Secondly, I want to also encourage you to tell me what kinds of people will be there, what kind of facilitation method do you think will suit these kinds of people, and then let's talk about how long, how detailed, how general. Let's talk about how to use this presentation. We might need to add material, subtract material. How can we use this to help your team better? It's been a pleasure showing this sample to you. I hope we can connect personally one day, and I look forward to helping you out to achieve your goal. Bye for now.